A little boy and his grandfather are raking leaves in the yard. The little boy sees an earthworm trying to get back into its hole. He says, "Grandpa, I bet I can put that worm back in that hole." The grandfather replies, "I'll bet you $5 you can't. It's too wiggly and limp to put back in that tiny hole." The little boy runs into the house and comes back out with a can of hairspray. He sprays the worm until it is straight and stiff as a board. The boy then proceeds to insert the dying worm back into the hole. The grandfather hands the little boy $5, grabs the hairspray, and runs into the house. 30 minutes later, the grandfather comes back out and hands the boy another $5. The little boy says, "But Grandpa, you already gave me $5. The grandfather replies, "I know. That's from Grandma." The captain comes on the intercom and says, "Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is Captain Smith from the cockpit speaking. On the behalf of the crew, we would like to thank each and every one of you for flying with us today. We should be touching down in Miami in approximately 45 minutes, so please enjoy the remainder of the flight." He forgets to turn off the intercom, turns to the co-pilot and says, "I think I'm going to go take a big shit and then go get me a blowjob from our new hot flight attendant." One of the flight attendants in the back of the aircraft realizes the intercom is still on, panics and runs up the aisle to tell the captain. A little old lady in row 15 sticks her head into the aisle and says, "Don't rush, honey. He said he had to take shit first." During Second World War, a badly injured British pilot is forced to bail out over occupied France. He was hunted down by the Germans, in very bad shape, and transferred to the medical wing of a German prisoner of war camp. After a week, the doctors tell him that the infection in his left leg is irreversible and that they're going to have to amputate it. "Okay," says the airman. "Just, if you would, do me one favor. Fly and drop the leg over my airbase in England with a note that says, 'Old Newcomb gave his leg for Britain.'" The Germans think this is an odd request, but they can't see anything particularly wrong with it, so they agree. The following week, the same infection has spread to his right leg, and the doctors decide they have to amputate that leg too. The airman makes the same request for the amputated limb to be dropped over his base with the note stating, "Old Newcomb gave his second leg for Britain," and reluctantly, they do it. By the third week, the infection has now spread to the unlucky airman's left arm, and they announce they have to amputate that limb as well. The man again asks the Germans to drop it over his base, but this time they refuse. "No, we won't do that." "Why not?" asked the airman, confused. "We have reason to believe that you are trying to escape." During one of her daily classes, the high school teacher, in an attempt to teach good manners, asked her students the following question. If you were on a date at a fancy restaurant and needed to relieve yourself, how would you tell your date that you have to go to the bathroom? Paul said, "Simple, just a minute, I have to take a piss." The teacher responded by saying, "That would be rude and impolite." "What about you, Sherman? How would you say it?" Sherman said, "I am sorry, but I really need to go to the bathroom and pee. I'll be right back." "That's better, but it's still not very nice to mention the bathroom at the dinner table." She finally got around to her problem student Johnny, whose filthy mouth she always feared. "And you, Johnny, can you use your brain for once and show us your good manners?" Little Johnny said. "I would say, 'Darling, may I please be excused for a moment? I have to go shake hands with a very dear friend of mine, whom I hope to introduce you to after dinner tonight.'" One bright and cheery Saturday morning, a man hears a knock at his front door and answers it. The stranger says, "Hello, I'm a Jehovah's Witness, and I am here to enlighten you with some inspirational religious stories." After a quick thought, the homeowner says, "Well, come on in." He takes the stranger to the living room. "Please have a seat and let me bring you a cup of coffee." Upon returning with a freshly brewed cup, he says to the stranger, "Now, what about these stories you have to enlighten me with?" The Jehovah's Witness says, "Fuck if I know. I never got this far before." From the moment Jane first met Tarzan, she was immensely attracted to him. She asked him many questions about his life in the jungle, but when she asked him about his sex life, Tarzan replied, "What that?" Jane proceeded to explain the ins and outs of lovemaking. Finally, Tarzan understood and told Jane he used a hole in tree to get relief. Jane was horrified at such a waste of a man. "You were doing it all wrong, Tarzan. Here, let Jane show you how to make love properly." Jane stripped, laid on the floor, spread her legs wide open, pointed to herself, and told Tarzan where to insert himself. Tarzan took off his loincloth, moved close to Jane and started kicking her hard between her legs. Jane rolled over and over in agony. Finally, gasping for air, Jane whispered, "Why the hell did you do that?" "Tarzan, check for bees first." One fine day, God was overseeing the planet Earth and couldn't help but notice all of the mischievous and devious behavior that was rampant. This prompted him to summon one of his trusted angels, instructing the angel to descend to Earth for a period of time to observe and report back. Upon the angel's return, the angel reported to God, "Yes, indeed, the situation on Earth is quite dire. 95% of humans are engaging in wrongdoings, and only a meager 5% are upholding virtuous behavior." God pondered over this revelation for a moment and then decided, perhaps I ought to dispatch a second angel to cross-verify this report. So without further ado, God called upon another angel and dispatched him to Earth for a while. When the second angel returned, he approached God and confirmed, yes, the initial report was accurate. The state of affairs on Earth is deteriorating. 95% are engaging in misconduct, but there exists a small group, 5%, who are genuinely striving to do good. God found this news disconcerting, so he decided to reach out to the 5% that were virtuous because he desired to inspire them and provide a little bit of motivation to keep them persevering in their good deeds. Do you have any idea what the content of that motivational email was? No? Well, I didn't receive one either. My friends, if you want to watch other funny jokes, subscribe to the channel.